foundation of the ecological harmony upon which the economic strengths were built, then like a house of cards, our economies will collapse. These people were tiger dancers. These guys knew long ago that you had to venerate nature, not because nature was something so beautiful, but they feared it. They recognized that our water comes from here, our food comes from here. We worship Durga, but we deal in the tiger's bones. I mean, I cannot start to tell you how utterly important it is for us right now not to import false ambition from the G7 countries, but to export our attitudes. If we do that, we will solve climate change problems, and we will end up happier ourselves and more contented. Species diversity is the only way that the planet can actually maintain the atmosphere. You cannot maintain the atmosphere through machines. It has to be maintained through ants, through termites, through beetles, through bees, through butterflies, through karadi, these are the creatures. What you're seeing here is not, by the way, some big multinational corporation. What we are seeing here is the necessity for, say, human rights groups also now to accept that things which were acceptable 50 to 80 years ago will also have to change in traditional societies. There's a man sitting on one branch of one tree there. This used to be a very scientific form of agriculture. Penda kheti in some places, Sweden agriculture in some cases, basically slash and burn. It was fine when the forests were large, but today with the forests small, this is putting carbon into the atmosphere at such a pace that the carbon footprint of one villager who actually sits in the northeast and burns this is probably 5 or 10 or 15 times more than yours, even if you have 40 air conditioners running. Because every tree that's burnt down there was probably, it was 10 tons by weight. So I'm saying, rich or poor, north or south, we'll all have to accept the vulnerability of our lives to nature, and we'll have to adapt to that. That's what happens. These are not pictures that I would normally show, but I think it's necessary for us to get a reality check. When a forest goes somewhere, when some company says, I want bauxite from Niyamgiri, or I want copper from here, or I want iron ore from there, or I want lignite from here, if that happens to be a forest, then this is what you're going to pay. This is the real price we are paying. Not only this, but the fact that the elephant, wherever that elephant was, that elephant's forest, that tiger's forests were actually producing for us water. It was producing, every forest is an air conditioner. It was actually moderating our climate. And our agriculture is so completely dependent upon the fact that our atmosphere must be in a certain degree of harmony. The monsoon, I don't know, some economists should tell me, but I think 70% of our economy depends upon agriculture, and the agriculture depends upon the monsoon, and if we start tampering with that, it's like burning the lifeboats on the Titanic because you're feeling cold. It just doesn't work. We can't afford to do that. Preventing forest fires is not a wildlife issue, it's a survival strategy. We have to give our forest departments the due credit for actually protecting our lives. They are the keepers of our lifeboats. These scenes that you see here, short-term mining profits, yes, we all need mines. We need mines because we need to get some mine. But right now, you look around at all the scams that exist around, and at least 8 out of 10 scams will lead you to a mining contract somewhere or the other. Why are we doing this? I mean, it's like going to Africa in the old days, 150 years ago, giving glass beads and taking away diamonds. We cannot afford to take our biosphere and sell it away. I'm not going to stop at too many of these slides. These are not pictures that are new to you. We all want a good life, but in order to have a good life, we must first have a life. Is this the future that we have for our cities? This is not some kind of Photoshop thing. This is happening now. Climate change is aggravating farmer suicides. We say it's because they can't pay back loans. In truth, it is because the food won't come out, the crop won't come out of the fields. And there are those who would deny climate change today. We are asking, with Mr. Jairam Ramesh, we sat together and we saw para 6 of the Copenhagen Accord said, protect the forest, in order to sequester and store carbon. Now, Project Tiger, 38,000 square kilometers of critical tiger habitat are our lungs, they are our water catchments, they are our carbon sequestration machines, they are our flood controllers, they are our drought controllers, they are infrastructures, not just of survival, but of commerce. And we don't seem to understand that yet. Today, this reality, the penny hasn't dropped. Bombay is at sea level. Maybe 300,000, 350,000 crore rupees worth of infrastructure damage could take place. We haven't even begun to defend ourselves against this. We don't have to go through the technicalities of this. The truth is that old carbon created 400 million years ago, which we call fossil fuels, actually they are fossils, dead animals and dead plants. They're burnt and the carbon content goes up. It creates an extra layer. Ultraviolet radiation can come in, but infrared radiation can't go out. And as the years go by, we see that the connection between high carbon concentrations and higher temperatures is absolute. And this is something that we should actually try, and you should have, when somebody tells you, no, this is all a hoax, it doesn't work, just take a look at these. These were the glaciers. This is what is happening. Italian Alps 20 years ago and today, all across, this is what's happening. Pindari Glacier, 1936, I don't know which side to point this, I wish it would go faster. And 2006, anybody got a magic wand? There you are. Huh? Towards this? There you are, 40% of the world. These are realities. I mean, as I say, you can argue with human beings no, it's not working at the TV and it's not, there you are. That's what's going to happen to the Dutch, by the way. They are the ones who made the dikes, but they haven't made dikes that can take care of this, I can assure you. And it's not just them. Something like 25 to 30 million people live in this area. This is what's going to happen if the Greenland ice shelf melts. We don't know when it'll happen and we don't know how fast it'll happen. But this is where the tigers live in the Sundarban. The Royal Bengal tiger lives here now. He is not yet developed gills, He won't be able to survive underwater. These are all hardcore realities. And the scientists, I'm afraid, we'll have to keep them in their place. They are supposed to tell us, this is what it is, this is what it is, this is what it is. And it's for us to know what we do with that. I would be very, very worried if a scientist were given the power to decide whether to go ahead or whether not to go ahead, because in my ordinary life, I don't need a meteorologist to tell me which way the wind is blowing. If I know that the temperatures are higher, that much they say, then I know that the glaciers are melting too, because there's no science yet that can suggest glaciers that are capable of withstanding heat. Jungle Nadi ki maa hai. That's what the thing is. At the close of what I've got to say, I'll just say that that's a stick insect. It's a vegetarian stick insect with such a low carbon footprint, you'd never believe it. But when that car goes into first gear, you know what's going to happen. It's crunch time. We're in exactly the same situation as that, And the children know this. The children know this. They're saying 350 parts per million is what we have to work for. It's already 390 parts per million, the concentration of carbon in the atmosphere. And when Dr. Manmohan Singh and Obama and everybody gets together, they say that, all right, look, 2 degrees, you're talking about 450 parts per million. That's what the world leaders are going to be happy with. But a little child got up at a meeting quite similar to this with Lord Nicholas Stern, delivering a very impassioned plea to India that, please, for God's sake, don't chase GDP now. Put a portion of your GDP into defense or we will erode it all. A little child got up from there and said, everybody is saying you'll do this by 2050. All of people in the room, how old will you be then? It was such a simple question asked by a 16-year-old girl. How old will you be in 2050? If we're not going to be around in 2050 or we're going to be too old to really know, I don't think we have the right to take away their future, their life. Almost similar thing was done in Durban. There was a meeting, a global environmental meeting. Nelson Mandela was there. One of these girls who's part of our Kids for Tigers, we did an exchange between India and South Africa. One of the girls got up and said, "I only see old people in this room. You'll soon be dead. Then I have to run the world." And there was stunned silence until until Nelson Mandela, in his weak way, got up in a half crouch and started to clap. And she got a standing ovation from 2,500 people. We need to imbibe a little humility. We need to remember where the music really is. We need to remember who it is that we live for. I have 2 grandchildren. All I want for them is to be safe, and I want them to be happy. And the question they're asking us is, do we matter? We don't vote, but do we matter? I was hoping that you might, on these 5 or 6 visuals, whether you guys would tell us what you feel, you know. I mean, if I'm saying your music, but they've disconnected the piano, it seems, so that's out of the question. But here is what we have. This is my country. This is why the Mughals came here. This is why the British came here. They never came to feed us. They came to feed off the plenty of the land. And the plenty was created by this crab and that elephant and that frog. My God. I mean, this is the wealth of India. This is our art, this is our poetry, this is our culture, this is our happiness. When you take a holiday, you don't go to the nearest industrial estate to spend 5 days, you know. You probably go somewhere like this, you know. So, let's just do the right thing. I'm not going to stop on this one. We can stop this slideshow now. What you can do, what I can do. Any 12-year-old will tell us all that, you know. But what we should remember is what Gandhi said. We don't have to be morose, we don't have to be dismal, we don't have to say, "Oh my God, the world is coming to an end." That's not the thing. Just do whatever you can do and make sure that you rise to your capability. We'll solve not just climate change, but hunger. We'll solve education, we'll solve clothing, we'll solve everything. But not if we forget that the planet has the ultimate trump card. I'll end with just one small 60-second story. The Eskimos, who they prefer to be called Inuits, I asked one of them, who's a beautiful leader, how he managed to survive with George Bush as his president, you know. And he looked at me and he said, "It will take him 5 days to reach me. There's no helicopters that can land over there, they'll freeze. And in our community," he says, "we have the right heroes." He says a hero is somebody who goes out, maybe he'll kill a walrus, maybe he'll kill something, he'll come back, he'll butcher it, he'll share it with the whole community, and he becomes a hero. But in your country, as far as he was concerned, George Bush was me, you know, because I looked the way I looked. He says, in your country, you know who you make the heroes? A guy goes out into your community, he picks your pocket, he stabs you, he hits you, he takes your money, puts it in his pocket, and you make him a hero. We have to change our heroes. We have to change our ambitions. Everything else will follow, and the planet will be safe. Thank you.